The Relic, 1997 sci-fi horror film. Science meets superstition.
33% Homo sapien.
Pardon? What are you talking about?
Gradual extinction of the human race.
Greetings, fiends. Today we're looking at the top-notch sci-fi horror film, The Relic, from 1997, directed by Peter Hyams, starring Tom Sizemore and Penelope Ann Miller. The Relic is a clever mix of science and superstition, which deftly continues this theme throughout the film. Warning, there will be some light spoilers in this video, but I won't give away any of the major revelations. The Relic is definitely a film you should track down and watch. It ranks very high in a rather long list of science fiction and horror films from the 1990s. The Relic plot. A detective is puzzled after a recent spate of deaths involving decapitations. He visits a museum when a new victim is found murdered in the same way. In the museum, he encounters an evolutionary biologist who herself is puzzled after discovering a mutated beetle that possesses both insect and reptilian DNA. The detective finds a common link between the murders and the hypothalamus glands missing from the brains of the victims. Together, they both try to defeat a legendary monster who is on a killing spree. Science and superstition. One very intriguing concept occurring throughout The Relic is the idea of science and superstition on a constant collision course. Evolutionary biologist Dr. Margot Green, played by Penelope Ann Miller, is a strict scientist and rationalist. All things can and will be explained logically. While struggling to get a grant to continue her work, she is perturbed with the new museum exhibit titled Superstition, and thinks such an exhibit has no place in a museum of science. Things get worse for Margot when she runs into Detective Lieutenant Vincent D'Augusta, played by Tom Sizemore, who is at the museum investigating a recent homicide. As it turns out, the good detective is very superstitious, which creates a rather humorous friction between the two, as they are inevitably drawn closer together during the investigation. This rift also feeds into the mystery of the film. Field Museum of Natural History. Because the Relic novel portrayed the New York Museum's administration in an unflattering light, they turned the film's producers down. Paramount Pictures offered the museum a 7-figure sum of money to film there, but the administration was worried that the monster movie would scare kids away from the museum. Luckily, the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago loved the premise and allowed them to shoot there. Creating Kthoga. Creating a legendary creature that had not been seen before was a great challenge for the studio. Based on the sketchy description in the original novel by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child, lead concept artist Mark Crash McCreary made a number of Kthoga designs, and Peter Hyams chose his favorite one. The final design had a spider-like head and a 15-foot-long body that was an amalgam of a lion, an alligator, and a horse, detailed with reptilian scales and tufts of hair down the spine. Stan Winston Studios. Makeup artist Stan Winston and his team made 3 creatures, with 2 people moving the heads and people on the side working the electronics to move the arms, claws, mouth, and so forth. Hyams reviewed Winston's early drawings, and his only suggestion was to make the monster more hideous looking. The director also suggested certain invertebrates for the inspiration, and Winston came up with an arachnoid outline for the monster's face. In the scenes where the creature is running or jumping, a computer-generated version was used. Bringing Kthoga to life. Kthoga's quadruped physiology required arm and leg extensions, manipulated by stunt performers Vincent Hammond and Brian Steele. Due to the awkward position of the actors in the suits, they had to be attached to harnesses from above to give them appropriate support. Vincent and Brian trained for 3 months with animal behaviorist John Alexander to learn how to execute basic moves inside the suit. Remember the guy in the suit? Mark Crash McCreary felt the weight of responsibility when Chris Swift and the puppeteering crews returned from the shoot every day, exhausted by the Herculean efforts required to get a performance out of a Kthoga suit. Quote, "I felt bad when the guys came back from the set talking about how miserable it was to work with this character," Crash admitted. "I had tried to give Peter Hyams something very different, but ultimately I designed something without considering the actor inside. It was a real lesson in how careful I had to be when I was executing a design. If you're telling people to follow a drawing, that drawing had better be right, and it had better work mechanically and practically. I learned a lot on the Relic. I just wish I had learned it without people suffering." Unquote. Off with his head. One of the most difficult scenes in the Relic to animate was the one featuring the Kthoga when it chases a police officer, grabs him by the shoulders, and violently rips his head off. This scene was animated by Bill Dietrich. The actor playing the officer was placed on a green screen, with the same sequence filmed on the set. A digital policeman replaced the actor at the right moment with a smooth transition, enabling the digital Kthoga to grab his head and brutally rip it off. Miller and Sizemore. Penelope Ann Miller had not done a horror film prior to The Relic, but was drawn to director Peter Hyams' desire to have a strong, smart female lead. Tom Sizemore was attracted to the film because he got to play the male lead. "I had the responsibility of pushing the narrative forward," he said. In addition to shooting on location in Chicago, a set was built in Los Angeles of a tunnel flooded with water. Tom Sizemore spent most of the shoot either damp, cold, or soaking wet, and as a result caught the flu twice. The production was shut down briefly when Peter Hyams became too sick to work. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. The giant monster head gate through which the Superstition exhibit is entered is an actual size replica of the Orcus Gate at the Parco del Mostri, Park of the Monsters, in Bomarzo, Italy. Carved over the entrance are the words, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." According to the Divine Comedy by Dante, these are the words carved on the entrance to hell. Practical rules. Peter Hyams generally preferred working with the practical Kthoga on set. Quote, "From a directing point of view, it's always preferable to work live with something right there on the set," he said. "In order to get to know Kthoga, I had to have him there on the set. I could physically walk around him, get right up next to him, stroke him, stare at him, change the light on him, the way I would anything else I was shooting." Unquote. I hope you enjoyed this look at The Relic. As always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.